everybody. Welcome to another episode of In the Green Room with Aidan Keene. Today I am joined by one of the most beloved figures in the entertainment industry. He was the 2007 Season 2 of America's Got Talent champion and still to this day headlining shows across the United States. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Terry Fator. Terry, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Aiden. It's great to be here.
It's really an honor to speak with you because I was only 2 years old when you won America's Got Talent,
Ooh.
but I've been a fan of yours for as long as I can remember, so this is really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a long time ago, 18 years ago that I think now it's going to be 19 years after this season. So crazy, huh?
It's pretty incredible how time flies, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
One of my first questions for you is kind of keeping in the theme of your tour this year, Pure Imagination. And I would like to take a little dive into your imagination because it just seems to be ever growing and always evolving. And I'm curious, when it comes to your characters in your show, how do you come up with those ideas of the characters? Do you always base them off of yourself, or how does that work?
Well, originally, when I first started, I was just basically creating characters the way the books that I was reading and the records that I was listening to and the, videos I was watching were telling me to. Because there are several. When I was young, we didn't have like MP3s and YouTube and all that, so we had to get these LP record albums, vinyl, which is kind of cool. I see a lot of stuff on your wall that says you probably like that kind of that more vintage stuff.
Absolutely.
There were lessons on ventriloquism, how to be a ventriloquist, instant ventriloquism by Jimmy Nelson, and an amazing one with Charlie McCarthy, and they would teach you how to create a character. And so, of course, I just created the basic ones. I had a little boy. I was a little boy, and it was school jokes and problems with home. And then as I got older, I began to try to kind of branch out, and I started a band in 1988 called Texas the Band. We were a country rock band, and one of my characters really had kind of morphed it from one character to another, and I couldn't quite set on. At one point, he had a mohawk, and his name was Spud. At another time, he had long hair and wore leather and chains, and his name was Johnny Rebel. And then when I started this country rock band, I decided to name him Walter T. Airedale, because it sounded very country. And he talks like this, talks like I'm a country guy, and he would do country songs, and we had a lot of fun with that. And then as the years went on, I just would when I would create a character, it would be based on the type of music I wanted them to sing. So I created my Maynard Tompkins character, the Elvis impersonator, because I didn't have anybody that would sing Elvis that could sing Elvis, any puppets that could sing Elvis, things like that. I created the little girl character because I needed someone who would sing female songs, Ed Last and Aretha Franklin and stuff like that. Where that's Etta James by Last is Etta James and Aretha Franklin and things. And so really, all of them, almost all of them, have been created out of necessity of a type of impression that I wanted to do or a type of song I wanted to do, and that's really how I create. I know it's different from most people, but there's not another ventriloquist out there that does impressions of singers and ventriloquism. So for me, I got a little bit of uh, a different way of creating than most, and if not all other ventriloquists.
That's awesome. And I'm actually a tribute artist out here. I have an Elvis show that I do. And so
Oh, nice.
obviously I love Maynard Tompkins, but I have to say, there are so many impersonators in the world, and a lot of them are great and a lot of them aren't. But I have to say, you can sing Roy Orbison with your mouth closed, which is incredible because I know so many people that can't even sing Roy with their mouth open. So I really kudos on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just talking. It's funny because uh, the ability comes so naturally for me, and I didn't even realize I was an impressionist until I was almost 30 years old when my guitar player pointed out that I was a vocal impressionist. I just thought everybody could do that because I just could. Now, I'm not taking away the hundreds of thousands of hours I've practiced and worked and rehearsed and everything, but I was just told by a couple of Broadway artists, very very astute Broadway artists, that they think I'm in the 3-octave range, which is what Roy Orbison was. And it's funny that you say that because I had already been doing a Roy Orbison impression, and I was singing crying in my show with Texas the Band. And I had never done it as a ventriloquist, though. So I could do it. I could hit all the notes. I could do all that. Um, and and so one day when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for my finale, and if we want to, we can talk about how Winston the Impersonating Turtle even came about,
Mhm.
how he was created. It's kind of an interesting story. But I said, my sister is the one who said, you have to do your Roy Orbison impression. She said, it's one of the best impressions of Roy Orbison I've ever heard. And so I said, okay, well, that's an interesting. I've never done it with my mouth closed, but I'll work on it. And then I decided that if we put a little wig and sunglasses on Winston, that he would, people would fall in love with him, which they did, and that in turn ended up winning the show for me because I think people were blown away, and it never seemed that remarkable to me. But I guess now that I think about it, with you saying that, it's pretty remarkable that I can do that. I know Elvis would have loved it because I know he said Roy Orbison was his by far his favorite singer. So it's unfortunate that Elvis passed away because I think he would be a huge fan of what I do.
He sure would. And is Roy one of your heroes?
Yes, absolutely. And really on that note, I've always loved Roy Orbison. And I got an email from Roy's widow. She's since passed away, but I got an email after America's Got Talent, and she thanked me for letting her hear her husband's voice on television again, which was, well, that's quite a compliment.
That's certainly the ultimate compliment. Yeah, I've Barbara really was big into keeping Roy's legacy alive, so that's really cool that you had that
She was,
interaction.
yes, yes.
As a fellow performer, I'm very curious about your answer to this question because people, and I'm not saying this in a braggadocious way of any way, but a lot of times people will say, "Oh, you should go on America's Got Talent," or "You should go on The Voice," after they see one of my shows. And I've chosen not to because I like what I do on the local scene. But I'm curious about what your mindset was and your journey towards the big competition and what your expectation was at that time.
Well, I would highly recommend that you do it or anyone do it. Anytime anyone has asked me, should I? My answer is unemphatically. I mean, emphatically yes. Unequivocally is what I was thinking of. But yes, and the reason is it's not about winning. I had no delusions that I was going to win the show. I mean, I ended up doing it, but there, in my mind, the chances were about as high as me winning the lottery, which is pretty much zero chance because there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that try out for those shows. So I went in, um, and the reason I say yes, you should and anybody else should is that it's not about the winning. It's about getting your name out there so people know who you are. And my goal, and literally, I was 20 years before America's Got Talent. I was playing schools and fairs. I was doing elementary schools where I was doing a little bullying and funny things and songs. And then I was the rest of the year was done doing fairs and county fairs and festivals and things like that. A few corporate parties and stuff. And I had no intention of getting on there and becoming a superstar and becoming internationally famous and headlining Vegas. That was not even in the cards for me. What I wanted was, I said, this is going to give me a fan base. And I will be able to raise my price at elementary schools and fairs. I mean, that I'm not kidding. And so I wasn't, all these people, when they would get voted off, oh, they would blubber and cry and, oh, yeah, it was my dream. I was like, man, when I get kicked off, I'm going to immediately start my campaign of publicity so that people know, so that I can raise my price. That's what I thought was going to happen. And so if you do this for a living, it can only help you. I mean, unless you get on and they torch you. But if you're good at what you do, they shouldn't torch you. And it's really irrelevant whether you get on, one, two, three. Other than you'll have more fans. Now, America's Got Talent is not as it's not as relevant as it once was. Their numbers are pretty low now. So is American Idol and all the Voice and all this. But even so, they have viral clips that have millions and millions of views of people that go online, and it can only help your social media following. And even if you just want to tour locally or do your stuff locally, it'll just give you more notoriety even locally. Um, my advice is don't. Now, again, like I said, I had no plans to do. Now, I did make the goal of being a headliner in Las Vegas in the 1980s when I was in my 20s. I read that Danny Gans had signed a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal at the Mirage, and I thought, wow, that's my goal. I'd like to have a residency where I'm making millions of dollars and I don't have to tour and people come to me and so America's Got Talent totally beyond what I thought was going to happen. And another thing is people don't know. They think America's Got Talent gave me that residency. They did not. I actually signed with the Hilton um 2 weeks before I won the show, or 3 weeks before I won the show. They loved me on the show, and they said, "We'd like to have you play here as a headliner." And I thought, "Oh, this is cool." And so all of a sudden, my price, of course, once I won the show, my price shot up, 10, 15 times, 20 times what I was getting paid at schools and fairs just to be a headliner in places. Um, and my show in Vegas sold out in 4 hours. So they booked me another show that sold out in 4 hours. The only other person that ever sold out that quickly at the Hilton was Elvis, and they were really impressed. So they booked me for 3 shows a month when Barry Manilow in his theater when Barry Manilow was off, and so I got the weekends he didn't, and they gave me his suite and everything. So I was in this 3-story luxurious opulent. No, I've never I mean, listen, I was a Motel 6 guy, growing up, and so I this was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. And while I was doing that year, the people at the Mirage came, which was so incredibly fortuitous because I had said, I want to be a headliner like Danny Gans at the Mirage. They said, Danny Gans's contract is up. We were looking for somebody new. We saw you on America's Got Talent. When you won, we'd like to offer you, you won. And so we'd like to offer you the contract. So it went in a direction that I never foresaw. I thought I was going to have to work my way up. And then I was unprecedented at the time. I was the only n- person who was totally and completely obscure that immediately got a headlining gig in Las Vegas, a long-term residency in Las Vegas. That had never happened before. Now it's happened several times. I'm kind of the father of that because America's Got Talent. Now there's maybe 6 or 8 people who have been on or won America's Got Talent that are now headlining Vegas that were unknown before America's Got Talent. So I kind of set the bar for a whole bunch of people. And again, it was not my intention. So anytime you can go on a show like that, Aiden, I just recommend that you do, unless you're not interested in a fan base. But even if you never want to do anything but local, it helps your notoriety and your fan base. And especially if you get a lot of compliments. If they say, "Wow, that was amazing, Aiden, that was incredible," then you've got a cool demo video. That's what I was doing. I was actually kind of making my own recordings of every time the judges would say something, and I was ready to put out this promo DVD or a promo video that I could send out and get cruise ships and other things, and everything just kind of took off on its own. So without me having to do much other than winning the show, and trust me, that doesn't happen to everybody. Most people, they win the show and they have no idea what to do. I went in with a plan. I'd been doing this for 20 years. I was ready to get notoriety, fans. I had a publicist set up. She had a check, and I said, cash that check as soon as I get kicked off the show and start working on getting me interviews and stuff. So, I was always a very, very hard worker. I was always a person who spent an inordinate amount of time perfecting and honing and writing and creating, and that didn't stop. In fact, it went up tenfold once I won America's Got Talent. My I have a dedication to making sure that I'm doing the best show I can possibly do for my fans, and it's that kind of mentality though that will garner success in anyone's career.
I'll definitely have to rethink it. And again, too, it's not like every day you can win the praises of Simon Cowell and Piers Morgan as you have.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, yeah, if you get a compliment from Simon Cowell, man, that's you can dine on that, man. You can put that in your promo and go, Simon Cowell said blah blah blah, which I do. He said
right,
I'm one of the most talented people he's ever seen in his life, and that's on my promo. Simon Cowell says Terry Fator is one of the most talented people he's ever seen. That means a lot when somebody reads it.
right. And when you came on AGT, as you mentioned earlier, the world fell in love with not only you, but your friend Winston the Impersonating Turtle as well. And so I'd love to hear the story about how you guys met.
Okay, he's here.
He's here.
Hi,
Ah,
Aiden.
hello,
How you
Winston.
doing?
I'm great. How
Great.
are you?
I'm good. Yeah, just listening to this guy. He's so talentless.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Without me, he'd be nothing.
yeah. That's what you say.
Anyway,
So we're gonna tell you the story.
so what happened? Can I tell? No, shut up. I'm telling the story. Okay. So what happened was he was this completely talentless ventriloquist who thought he could sing, but he finally got there with the help of other puppets.
That's true. Other puppets.
Yeah. And then he didn't know what to do, so he was walking next to this pond in Hollywood. That's where shut up, I'm telling the story. So that's where America's Got Talent was shot, and he was walking next to this pond and he was pondering. And he looked really depressed. So I stuck my head out of the pond and I said, "Hello, sir. You look down." And he said, "I am down." And I said, "What can I do to help?" And he said, "Can you do an impression of Roy Orbison?" And "Hanging over you." Was that it?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for that.
Okay. So now he's going to tell you a story, but it's a lie.
Right. Okay. So you go.
All right. I'll be back.
Okay. Anyway, so that's his version of the story. But what really happened was,
That's a lie.
shut up. Shut up. Anyway, so what really happened was I had this bit that I was wanting to do for America Got Talent. I was actually touring all over the country, and when I would do fairs and even at schools, I was ending with "What a Wonderful World," and I had this little Kermit the Frog puppet, and Kermit would sing with me, "I see trees of green, red roses too," and I'd be like, "I see skies of blue," and then I was getting standing ovations. Everyone was going crazy. And so I said, this is going to be huge. They're going to love it on America's Got Talent. So I showed it to the producers and they loved it. But they said, the Muppets have to give me special permission to use a Kermit the Frog puppet. And they said, no. So they said, we don't allow anybody to be Kermit other than Kermit. So I didn't really know what to do. I was a little disappointed. I wasn't angry. I got it. That's their rule. But then I decided what I can do is why don't I create some sort of an amphibian or reptile, whether it's a lizard, a snake, a frog. I mean, not a frog, but anything that would be in that area. And I'll have this thing do an impression of Kermit.
Don't call me a thing.
Okay, be quiet. I'm sorry, this puppet.
I'm not a puppet.
Oh, all right. So anyway, you see, we have a lot of fun by ourselves.
I can tell.
Notice how I said we.
Yep.
Anyway, no. I got with my sister and we started scouring the internet and trying to find any kind of an amphibian or reptile puppet. And we found this little turtle puppet that happened to be at a toy store in Austin. And I had dear friends who lived in Austin, and I called them. And of course, they're watching me and they're all like, "Oh my gosh, our friend is on America's Got Talent." I said, "Can you buy that puppet and overnight him to me? I need him tomorrow." They went straight there. They bought the puppet. They overnighted it to me. I opened it up, and I don't know what it was. When I name a puppet, I really basically let the puppet name itself. When I have it and I pick it up, the name just comes to me. It's very weird how that works, but it does. And so I picked the puppet up and I said, "This is Winston the Impersonating Turtle." And he's like, "Hello, how are you?" Now, he had a different voice and a different character because he didn't have a nose and he looked a little, like he might talk with like his nose was stuffed up because that's the way he looked. And then he did an impression of Kermit the Frog, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's genius! A turtle doing an impression." Well, yeah, it's genius. What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. They wouldn't let me use Kermit, so I had to create a turtle, and he is far and away my most popular character.
Yeah, should be.
I know it should be. Yeah.
Well, I'll say when I was growing up as a kid, since I'm so old now, but I grew up and I actually had a turtle as a pet. That was my first ever pet, and it was not nearly as entertaining as Winston is. So
yes,
it's
not many. I think he's the only turtle in the world that can do what he does.
I think so too. I've never seen anything like it. So when you're building your shows, there's things about your shows that have become so iconic, like Winston and all your other characters. But you've been doing this for a long time, and yet you never fail to surprise an audience with something new. How do you go about keeping your shows so fresh?
Well, I'm always thinking outside the box, and I'm always trying to figure out how can I push my talent to the limit, to the point that it's never been pushed before, and that's really my goal. But I was able, I said earlier, I started doing ventriloquism when I was 10, and I was 20 years professionally touring all over the country entertaining people. So I was prepared. I had, 3 hours, 4 hours worth of material that I was prepared. Going on America's Got Talent was not hard for me. Was the hardest part was saying, what am I not going to do? Most people are like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I think I was on 4 or 5 episodes where I actually performed. And I had so much material that I had to figure out what I wasn't going to do. And it was so I was prepared. And then I went in, and this is my advice to you or anybody else that goes on the show, and please listen to my advice. I have had so many people ask my advice and they did not take it, and they were kicked off in the first or second episode, and they told me, I wish I had listened to you. And I'm telling you, it is a competition. And you may or may not get through no matter how good you are. So always, always, always start. Your very first audition needs to be the most incredible, best thing you do. And then if you get back, then you have to figure out how you're going to top that. And that's what I did. By far the best thing I did was At Last by Etta James.
Mhm.
So what did I do? I wasn't going to save that, because what if I get kicked off? Nobody's going to see that. And that's one thing almost everybody remembers. When that little girl came out, that little girl puppet came out, and you hear this chubby white ventriloquist start singing Etta James, people took notice, right? So then I got to say, all right, how am I going to top this? And so how I topped it was, I had the same little girl. I think she was in the second episode, and I did Nat King Cole and Natalie. So I sang as Nat King Cole, and she snuggled up against me, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, it's so cute and wonderful." And then it's like, how am I going to top it? Well, that's where I came in with Kermit the Frog singing with Roy. I'm sorry, with Louis Armstrong, a duet. And so I had a turtle do an impression of Kermit the Frog, and that everybody, oh my gosh, he beat it. He beat it every single week. I had to figure out how I was going to top last week, and I did. And then the final, cherry on top was, Winston singing Roy Orbison, and the America Fell in Love. And it's interesting because I was the last to know that I was going to win it, but all four of the judges, all three of the judges were like, "I think you're going to win this show. I think you're going to win $1 million." They all said it, and I didn't even want to get my hopes up, because I'm like, even if I come in second, who cares? I was happy to be in the fourth, because I told you my plan was I just wanted to have a bigger fan base.
Right.
And when you have a bigger fan base, you can charge more money. Oh, so I was happy with what I was doing. I was making, very good money. I was working my butt off. I was working 5 to 7 days a week, 11 and a half months a year. So I was working and working and working and never stopping. But I was making decent money, but I could have doubled my price even if I hadn't won, because I suddenly had a fan base, and I could put on there as seen on America's Got Talent. And it gave me some, it gave me a little clout. Now, again, what happened to me was, and the great thing is, I was kind of the pinnacle. Nobody's ever eclipsed my success on America's Got Talent, and the show is not nearly as popular as I was there. We had 30 million people a week watching us, and that's huge. I mean, now it's like 3 million. So, which is still not bad. But they do have some that have tens of millions of views online, which is still, that's why I say there's no downside to it. There's no downside to going on America's Got Talent. You're just showing off in front of millions of people. Why wouldn't, showing your talent in front of millions of people? There is no downside, unless you totally choke.
Right.
But if you go in prepared, I went in prepared. I could have done my routines in my sleep. And I got to tell you something else. While we were on the show, almost every other contestant had their families there. They were going to the beach. They were doing all this stuff. I sat in my room and rehearsed every day. And I said, once the show is over, then I can relax, and I can, go on vacation. But I'm here, and that's all I'm thinking about is that next performance. So it was like over and over and over. And I'd be sitting. The only time I took a break was the seventh Harry Potter book came out while I was in the top 10, and we all went over to a bookstore and we all bought copies, and we were lining the hallways reading the Deathly Hallows. But I'm a very fast reader. I read the book in the day, and so I was done, and then I got back to practicing. So
I'm really gonna think about doing it now because You have a whole new way of looking at it. And the other thing
Yeah, there's no downside, and there's no such thing as selling out. Don't that's BS. Selling out means you make money at what you do. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You look at any band that's it's a lose-lose for any band, because a band that goes and says, "Hey, we're gonna, we were '70s and now we're gonna start doing '80s music." Oh, they sold out. No, they didn't. They wanted to expand. They wanted to do something different. And then if they keep the same sound, oh, geez, they're just old fogies. They don't, it's like there's no winning. So forget what anybody thinks. There's no such thing as selling out. It just means you're going to be able to sell yourself more easily. More people are going to come see you, and you're going to make more money. And if you don't want to sell out, give your money to the poor. Who cares? But if you're doing this, if you're only doing this for yourself, then don't. But if you're doing this because you want to entertain people and you want people to watch you do it, there's no downside to it, because more people are going to come see you. And really, see, that's one of the secrets of my success, Aiden, is that my 100% total focus on this from the beginning was my fans. I wanted more fans to watch what I was working my butt off to create. Okay. Now, the money was a wonderful side effect, but that was never my motivation. It was because in one way it was like, well, I can buy a nicer car to drive around, or I can afford to fly instead of, and get nicer hotels, which is, always nice. Take a nice vacation. But it was always, the main motivation was, I want more people. I work my butt off. I want more people to see the efforts of my work so that I can entertain them and give them a respite from their lives so they can enjoy what I'm creating. That's really what it is. And that's why I never got a big head. I never cared. I don't hobnob with a bunch of celebrity. I couldn't care less about all that nonsense. My wife and I, we go to Disneyland and just have some fun. And I work most of the time. I work on my show because I love it. That's what I love to do. I get up every morning and spend time working on the show, creating, writing, practicing, and because I love it. And it's all for the fans. It's all for the fans. If you want more fans, there is literally no downside to doing a show like that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Amen, Terry. I appreciate everything that you just said, because I couldn't agree more about the fans being the most important part. And I say that all the time, and you do it so well, interacting with your fans and even bringing them into the show sometimes I've seen is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to see your show for the first time in April. I can't wait.
Oh, where is it?
Rhode Island.
Where am I going to be? Huh? Where?
Rhode Island, Lincoln, Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. Oh, fantastic. Oh, well, I hope we get to meet.
Me too. I'm coming from Massachusetts, so I'm next state over, but I really can't wait. I've never seen your live show before, and I'm so excited.
Well, I'm excited too, because I got to tell you, I've been doing this 19 years this year in Vegas, and I have rewritten the show almost 40 times. And I'm going to tell you, this show is the best show I have put together in all the years I've been doing this. I'm 60. I've been doing this for 50 years. It is, and this is not just me talking. I have every person that comes and sees it tells me, "Oh my gosh, this is it." So, and not now. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to top it when I when I do a new show, because that's what I do. That's how a person sustains success. First of all, get success and sustain success is by constantly pushing themselves to top what they do. And it's always scary. Every time I'm like, how am I going to top this? My last show was called Who's the Dummy Now? And I'm like, it was so good. How am I going to top this? And now I've topped it. So that's just what you do, is you're always, creating, thinking, and figuring out ways to write better songs, to create more, better material, to interact with the audience in a better way, whatever. So I'm excited that you could see the show.
Me too. And that's my last question for you. What can we expect this year in your Pure Imagination tour?
Well, I called it Pure Imagination, obviously from the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, because there's a song there. But I called it that because I got to thinking about it and said, this all started when I was 10, and I created my first character using my imagination. And then I created more characters using my imagination. And now I'm asking you to use your imagination to believe they can really talk and sing and tell jokes and do impressions. And so the whole thing, literally everything in my act is pure imagination. My side, your side, all of us. So that's really why I called it that. And it's a show that will take you through every emotion. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll laugh, I'll leave you being amazed, because I end with We Are the World, doing 19 different impressions of male, female, high voice, low voice, all with puppets, with my mouth closed. And you will leave on a high, just feeling, and that you'll keep that high, that emotional high for at least a couple of weeks, just remembering how much fun you had at the show. So I highly recommend that people come. I get that from just being on stage. So when I walk on that stage, I don't need to be a drug addict because that's my drug. When I walk on that stage, I get that the high is insane when those people are cheering, and you'll feel the same way at the end of my show. Everyone will. They'll just feel such a high on life. And that's what we do, me and my wonderful characters. And so Winston will say goodbye to you. So
Yes.
Yeah, this has been really boring.
yeah, for you, it's been fun for me.
Yeah. Sorry if you fell asleep.
It
It's
has
what
been
he
a
does.
blast for me, and I hope to meet both of you in April when I'm there. That'd be awesome.
You will.
All right.
Goodbye, Aidan.
Goodbye, Winston. It was great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
So I'm throwing my voice, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that when he talks off, it's a little, that's literally what's called the distant voice, throwing the voice.
It's incredible. You inspired me to
Thank-
pick up ventriloquism, and I admire you so much for keeping going with it because I gave up after 2 hours.
yeah,
So,
it's hard.
it really
It's not easy. It's
is.
hard. And listen, they say it takes 10,000 hours to be perfect at something. I literally did this for hundreds of thousands of hours. I worked and worked. And I'm still working, 60 years old, and I'm still working. I never stop. But I love it. If you pick something you really, really love, it's not a job. I'm assuming you play guitar,
I do.
right?
I do.
Don't you enjoy just picking up that guitar and just riffing and playing?
I love it.
I do. I feel the same way about puppets. I love working with puppets. I love creating. I love writing jokes. I love learning new impressions. So, it's not work. I mean, I work, but it's not work. Now I do take time off. I do go to Disney, and my wife and I will take a vacation to Hawaii. But even there, I'm constantly, my brain's always working, and she'll be like, okay, shut it down, write it down, write down your idea and shut it down. Okay, honey. And then, I'll get back to it. But what a pleasure. This has been a great interview. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for your
much for
time.
joining me. And Terry, before I go, just so my fans can know where to find more info about you, can you just share a little bit about your website and perhaps the Terry Fator Foundation that they can help support?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can find me at terryfator.com, and I'm on every single social platform there is. I have a company that does all that. I'm not the only reason I use social is to find funny memes to send to my friends. That's really literally it. But they do all of that. And I also do have the Terry Fator Foundation, and you can go to terryfator.com and click on the store button, and all of my merchandise we sell, and it gets shipped directly to you. They're really on top of making sure that it doesn't take a long time for you to get to you. And 100% of the profits of every single thing sold on that anyone purchases goes to the Terry Fator Foundation, which works with military charities, first responder charities, and kids with cancer and other things like that. So it's really quite a phenomenal thing. I love that because it's a symbiotic relationship between me and my fans, where I provide the merchandise, they purchase the merchandise, and because of the money they've spent, people get helped. And so it's win-win, win-win, win-win for everybody. So
That's amazing. To all my listeners, please, please, please support the Terry Fator Foundation. And also visit the website and see where Terry's going to be near you. I'm sure you don't want to miss this show. It sounds incredible. And it will be topped next year, but for this year, this is it.
yeah, the pressure's on, right?
Well, thank you so much, Terry. This has been an honor speaking with you, and I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Until next time, everybody, may God bless you, and I'll see you all soon.